Welcome to the National Artificial Intelligence Association AI on Capitol Hill series. Today we're joined by Congressman Jay Obernolte of California, truly a leader, a remarkable leader in artificial intelligence and a personal hero in this space of mine. And so we're very grateful that you would spend the time to come on and talk to our members. We're one of the largest trade associations only focused on artificial intelligence, full stack data centers, chip makers, as well as LM companies. We have a lot of startups, small business companies, which of course, with your background, you can appreciate. And so with that, I will jump straight into the first question. As I just mentioned, you're a leading Republican in AI policy. And I actually was with Speaker Johnson the other day, and I was talking about AI policy. You got to talk to Jay Obernolte. So even as recognized by the Speaker, and you were the co-chair of the Artificial Intelligence Caucus and chair of the House Task Force on AI, which has put out a report that was very well received. Talk a little more about why you're involved in this space outside of the fact that you have a master's in AI from UCLA.
Right. Well, it's something I've always been deeply passionate about. A little known fact about me is that my goal in life when I was in high school was to be a researcher in artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow.
My father brought home an Apple II computer from work and gave me a book on how to teach yourself programming in BASIC. And so that ignited in me a lifelong love of computer science and a desire to have that be my career. So I went to Caltech, got a degree in computer engineering, and then I was working on my doctorate at UCLA in artificial intelligence, doing some of the early research in natural language processing and machine vision when my side hustle took off, which I only did to put myself through grad school.
And this is your video game.
Games.
Okay.
Yes. So that deflected me out of a career in academia into a career in business. So I find it really deeply ironic that now, 35 years later, my life has come full circle, and I'm helping to lead the discussion about a federal regulatory framework for AI.
Right. Yeah, you were doing AI much before it was known or cool. So,
we thought it was cool.
Right. Or I should say the general public thought it was cool.
Maybe the general public didn't know that. Yeah.
Right. When you were, this is obviously a tough question, but did you see this day coming where we'd be talking about agentic and all these models doing the things they were back then, or was that still a twinkle of imagination and too far out to even see?
Well, we knew it was going to change the world. We just thought it would happen a lot sooner. Also, it's happened in a way that we really could not have predicted back then. For example, the gold standard back then was the Turing test. This idea that we will know that AI has achieved a human level intelligence when you can be having a conversation with it and not be able to recognize if you're talking to a computer or a human. It's pretty indisputable at this point that our frontier large language models could pass the Turing test. However, I'm still not sure that you can say that they have a human level of intelligence. And there's certainly a lot of dissent over whether or not AGI, artificial general intelligence, is just around the corner or will never be achieved. A super intelligence that's more intelligent than a person. Right. So I think that we expected it to happen sooner, and we didn't expect the way that it occurred to be the way that it has been. Yeah,
I think that's correct. Talk to me a little about your take on the National AI Legislative Framework that the Trump administration put out. I think it was a 6 or 7 point plan. I assume there's ideas in there that came from your office and yourself. Talk to me a little about what you think about the framework and where that's headed.
Well, I think it was very helpful in a number of different ways. First of all, I think that it helps to get everyone pushing in the same direction. If you look at that framework, unlike some of the other things that have come out of the White House that are clearly the White House's ideas and are kind of political and partisan, this was very broad and kind of very bipartisan. And I think that it's very helpful that the White House is taking the lead on making sure that everyone is pushing in the same direction. I also think it was helpful because it was a little sparse. If you're looking at legislative details about exactly what a regulatory framework for AI looks like, you're not going to get it out of there. You'll get a pillar that we ought to be doing it, and that Congress needs to act to create a preemptive framework, but you won't get a lot of detail, which is actually good because we've been working on the detail for the last 3 years, starting with the work in the AI Task Force last Congress. So, I think that the administration recognizes the role that Congress has to play in getting the details right and filling in the details. And I think that the framework is really going to help us be able to work together to do that.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think for a long time, people were trying to figure out where was the administration going to come out on AI and to kind of establish that flagpole in a tight way. It's less than 5 pages. I agree. I think it was very helpful. Talk a little bit about the ratepayer protection pledge that they kind of mentioned as well. In that, is that with data centers, would you see Congress's role to be codifying some of those protections? I mean, that's with AI and data centers have kind of become synonymous. And the data centers, of course, are a lot more of a hot button topic. Do you like the idea of having Congress pass the pledge or work on that?
Well, sure. Well, I mean, we're, as you probably know, I sit on the Energy and Commerce Committee. So we are ground zero for enacting that pillar of the framework. And part of the problem that America is going to have in maintaining its dominance in AI development and deployment is going to be ensuring that we continue to have the trust of the public. So in a lot of different areas, I think that confidence in artificial intelligence on the part of Americans has been challenged, and we need to work to restore that. So one of the aspects of that is certainly to give people some assurances that data centers are not going to drive up residential energy costs. I think that actually the evidence points to the fact that it's not already. You can see any hyperscaler that's going to construct a $1 billion data center, the first thing that they're going to worry about now is where's their energy going to come from, because they need 100% reliable baseload, and they need it sized for the maximum that they will ever use in the life of the data center. So what you're seeing now with data center developers is they're either going to do on-site generation and do it behind the meter so they control everything, or they're going to contract with a local energy provider and pay for them to build more generations so that they can dedicate that percentage of the generation to them. But in either case, it's sized for more than the load that they expect to use because they want to future-proof it, which means, ironically, they're selling energy back onto the grid, which drives down energy costs by increasing supply. So, I mean, I think that those fears are not well-founded, but still, to give people some guarantees of that, I think is useful. And also, when we talk about transmission, which we have vastly underinvested in generation and transmission for the last 50 years in this country. It's unfortunately catching up with us now, and data centers is just the corner of it. We need to make sure that new transmission costs are not passed on to consumers when they are predominantly to move electrons from one place to the other for a data center. So I think that pillar of the framework could be very, very useful for that.
I think so too. I mean, I continue to think that it actually kind of shows some of the polling. If you ask someone what their opinion of an AI data center versus a normal data center, you'll have 70% against an AI versus maybe 50 against non-AI. Of course, they're all probably doing AI, right? But it just seems like I wonder if underneath the surface, the American public doesn't just trust AI for the workforce and jobs, and that trickles down to the physical manifestation of that, which is a data center, and how much the link is there. I don't know if there's a policy way to solve that issue other than people using AI more frequently, but it just seems to be an ongoing issue.
I actually think the problem is even more fundamental than that. I think that most Americans don't have a very realistic view of what AI is and what the risks of AI are. If you ask the average American on the street, what's the worst thing that can happen? You will probably get an answer out of the Terminator, where Skynet, creates an army of evil robots to take over the world. And we know that's not a terribly realistic view of what lawyers call the parade of horribles. That's not what keeps me up at night. I worry a lot more about the malicious use of AI by human actors than that kind of scenario. However, but because of that lack of knowledge, I think that there's a lot of unfounded fear out there. But we have to deal with that, right? And as policymakers and as leaders, we have to deal with that. And that starts by informing people and educating them about the risks and giving them some confidence. And data center developers can do that too. I mean, I've heard of one hyperscaler recently that's going to build a data center in Texas, and they are, as most hyperscalers are now, they're bringing generation with them, and they're over-generating. And they have told every resident of the city, look, as a thank you for welcoming us into your community, we are going to give everyone free electricity for 3 years.
Really?
Right?
Wow.
And I looked at that and said, that's the way it's done.
That's the model. Yeah.
That's the way it's done.
Yeah, I've long said that the data center should be looked at almost like oil wells. If you live near an oil well, you'll get dividends and stuff like that. I feel like that's a better way to kind of slice the...
Well, the other thing that we need to do a better job of reminding people is when someone comes and invests $1 billion in a data center in your community, that's $1 billion on the property tax roll.
Right.
That's money for schools, that's money for roads, that's money for health programs. That's huge. And not even talking about the jobs that come along with that data center.
Right. No, 100%. Going back to the task force, I know you're recently are working, I think Congressman Liu has put out a bill to kind of codify some of the provisions in the task force report. And pretty much every member of Congress I've talked to, Democrat or Republican, points to that task force as very bipartisan and the provisions in there very good. So I wanted to hear a little bit of your opinion on, is there a way to kind of, I don't want to say dust it off, but reinvigorate some life behind that? And is that something you're looking to do legislatively?
No, certainly. We've been working on this for a year and a half since the task force issued that report. And the bill that I'm leading with Congressman Liu is a good example of that. We're codifying a few of the different provisions in the task force report, but also we are just about to introduce what we call GAIA, the Great American AI Act, that will enact the federal regulatory system that we propose in the report, and that will codify those key pillars in the White House's AI framework from last month.
Oh, great. Okay.
And that's been in drafting over a year. It's hundreds of pages of long. It's been really, really challenging to get the language exactly right. But I'm hopeful that we are going to be able to get out, and we still have enough legislative runway to actually get it passed this year.
Oh, I agree. I think there's still plenty of time. And I continue to think that AI should be a bipartisan issue.
It certainly has to be.
It has to be.
It's regardless of your view of politics or the partisan divide in Washington, D.C., think about the fact that we in Congress can't do anything that is substantive and durable on a partisan basis, because even if we could get it through the House, and even if we can get 60 votes for something in the Senate, we absolutely don't want to set up a system that enacts rules for such a major industry that are going to change every couple of years when the political winds of fortune shift. Capital investment hates that.
They hate that. Yeah.
So everyone is much better served to keep it bipartisan. And there's nothing inherently, as you say, inherently partisan about AI. I mean, there's people feel different ways about different things, but that doesn't fit on the political spectrum. One party believes this and the other party believes that. So I think we proved that in the task force, and I wish more people knew that our final report, which, as you know, was almost 300 pages long, had over 80 different key legislative recommendations that were pretty well fleshed out. That task force report was unanimously approved by all 24 members of our task force, 12 Republicans, 12 Democrats, and the Speaker and his staff, and the Minority Leader and his staff. So I'm really proud of that we got.
That's got to be a record for a task force.
Well, I don't know if it's a record, but that was always the goal, and I'm really proud that we achieved it.
Right. So I mentioned at the top, we have a lot of small AI companies as members, and we like to say a lot that AI is a small business as well. It's not just 5 companies or big tech. We have lots of companies, 10, 15, 20 people. Plus, AI is great. It's such a great startup and founder culture. But one of the things that, if you're a small company, preach to acquire here with your background, complying in a lot of different states, all their different regulatory regimes, especially on AI and data and everything else, can be tough. Do you hope that your bill or a bill somewhere will include preemption? Is preemption still on the table? Is that something our members can look forward to, hopefully? Or
no, absolutely. Okay. I mean, it needs to. And to be clear, no one is saying that only the federal government should be regulating AI and that states should have no role in regulating AI. But everyone ought to think about the fact that, in addition to what you highlighted, the fact that 50 different states go in 50 different directions on AI regulation creates a really difficult regulatory landscape that's toxic to entrepreneurialism. And by the way, creates a barrier to entry for small companies and favors big tech who have buildings full of lawyers who can deal with that complexity.
Right.
But in addition to that, Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress and only Congress the authority to regulate interstate commerce. So what is needed is for Congress to decide what parts of AI development and deployment are inherently interstate commerce, and then set some preemptive guardrails that make it clear to the states what is interstate commerce and therefore preempted to be regulated only once at the federal level. And outside those guardrails, where they're free to be the laboratories of democracy that they always have been. So there's definitely going to be a role for the states, but Congress has to go first. in defining for the states where those lanes are.
Right. No, I 100% agree. Talk to a little bit as we come to end here. We have a lot of quantum companies that are members as well. There's a few quantum coalitions, but there's no quantum association. And of course, there, as you know, there's a big link between quantum and AI. Can you talk a little bit about quantum computing? I know you're one of the leaders in that space as well on the Science Technology Committee and ENC. Do you see the NQI passing? Where are we in quantum? What can we look forward to on quantum policy?
Right. Well, as you know, I'm the chairman of the Research and Technology Subcommittee on Science, Space, and Technology. So we have been focused on reauthorizing the National Quantum Initiative, and I'm very confident that we're going to be able to get that done. It's critically important to our international competitiveness. We have traditionally been the worldwide leader in quantum development, and I think that position is an indication of how important it's been that we've invested federal money in quantum research for the last couple of decades, but it's not going to maintain itself. And so we need to make sure that we keep pushing.
I agree. Last couple questions here, and these are a little easier, more fun questions. How much AI do you use on a daily basis as your job as a congressman?
Well, it's interesting that you said, okay. I'll answer in two segments.
Okay.
How much do I use on a daily basis? I make heavy use of AI on a daily basis. And what's interesting is that AI has become the kind of instant companion that you can ask any question. And that's what I really value about it, is all the things that you might have wondered, where have I seen that before? I wonder how that got started. You could just ask, and of course, it's trust but verify.
Right.
If you're going to depend on that answer to do something substantive, you better verify it. But still, to have ease of access to that information is amazing. Yeah. I'll give you an example. I installed a low voltage outdoor lighting system in my townhouse here on Capitol Hill this last weekend, and never would have known how to do that if it wasn't for AI.
Did it all with AI?
No, AI gave me the confidence. I asked how to do it, and the AI walked me through it. I was like, that's not rocket science. I could do that. I just ordered the parts. And it was really interesting. So I do use it for that a lot. In my role as a congressman, kind of less so, for a couple of reasons. First of all, because when we're making really consequential decisions about, for example, how to vote on legislation, it is very important that everything that we depend on be factual. And, AI still has a problem with hallucination at times. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that my legislative staff uses it in their research, but we verify everything before we actually depend on it.
Okay. Last question. I have a small cattle farm, so I'm a little hobby farmer, and I like to use a lot of the AI use cases around agriculture fascinate me, the way increase production. And I've seen these collars that go on cattle that you can move them and track their breeding schedules, all this kind of stuff using AI. What's the coolest use case of AI that's kind of outside the box that you've seen?
Generative AI still blows my mind. The fact that you can give like a paragraph in a prompt about a movie script and have it generate a movie based on your prompt is incredible to me. And I'm really hoping that eventually AI is going to be the motivating force that reunifies our cultural landscape, because we haven't really spoken a common cultural language since the 1970s, when we just had a few TV channels and everyone was watching the same thing, right? So back then, when you were talking about something, if Dan Rather was on television and said something, you may or may not agree with him, but you knew it had been vetted, right? And we had, the fragmentation of the media landscape, and then we had the advent of social media, and now we've got all this confirmation bias where any news that you want to hear, you can just pick something that's telling you, what you already, have pre-decided that is going to be your viewpoint. And it's very unhealthy for us as a society. And I'm wondering if AI is going to be, that force that kind of puts us back together and says, you might want to fact check that. That's, what I mean? Like if because if you're using it every day and you get to trust it, when it says something back to you like that, you might listen. So, I'm really hopeful about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's always funny because I grew up, I'm Gen Z. My parents said, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Mm-hmm. And now I feel like I'll tell my kids, maybe don't believe everything you read on AI, but now you're going to be faced with, like you said, where your kid can be smart and you want any topic given, access to Claude or ChatGPT. So it's a brave new world. Well, thank you, Congressman, for joining me and continue to be a great advocate in this space. We will continue to support you, and we look forward to your legislation dropping and endorsing that. So thank you, sir.
Battle continues.
Yes, appreciate it.
Thanks.